Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Canny Crystals, the podcast. I hope that you're all well and good. As you know by now, my name is Mart. I am your host, and this week I'm joined by such a beautiful soul that helps women achieve a deeper state of consciousness through her business and spiritual teachings. I am so excited to learn from her, and we've got a lot to cover in this episode. So please welcome to the show, Joanna Hunter. Joanna, how are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to have a juicy conversation, and I am so into crystals as well. So hopefully we'll get to talk about crystals a little bit too.
Amazing. I was going to say, I noticed a few behind you in your little setup there. You've got a gorgeous setup. It's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Just before we start as well, Joanna, I just noticed that, last week I posted something in Denise Duffield Thomas's Money Bootcamp community and you responded. So it's so nice to have that in common with you. I didn't know you were part of that community.
Yeah, I joined in 2015. It was literally the biggest investment I'd ever made in my business at that time. And I remember hitting that button so scared to join and literally bricking it. And then I did it, and then I entered the group for the first time, and I was like, yeah, I was totally meant to be here.
It's such a beautiful little community, isn't
Oh,
it?
it's amazing. It's amazing. Big props to Denise for what she's created there. It's really amazing. She's literally one of my favorite mentors.
Oh, I love that. So do you just want to introduce yourself to the listeners then, Joanna? Maybe tell us a bit about yourself, about your spiritual journey and how you started with this business.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Joanna Hunter. I live in the magical Highlands of Scotland. I'm literally stone's throw away from standing stones and mythical sites and things like that. So I live in a really magical part of the world. I'm one of these people that was born with my spiritual gift switched on, which meant for a really character building childhood. So I was that weird kid. That was me. And then when I grew up older, I remember on my 9th birthday, my birthday wish on my cake was, I just want to be normal. And not have, that was my big thing, and not have this big awareness of spirit and things like that. Thank God my wish did not come true. I absolutely thank God that it did not come true. So then I started my very first business at the age of 23, and I was newly married, had 2 small children, and I started a designer clothing shop. But I always had my spiritual gifts kind of in the background there and things. And then I grew my businesses. So I grew that business to 6 figures and multiple 6 figures.
Amazing.
I added a 65-seater cafe and restaurant. I added a designer clothes, a shoe shop. And then, as if all that wasn't enough, I added a spiritual events pop-up company as well. And I took all of those businesses between the ages of 23 and 26 to 6 figures and multiple 6 figures. So I grew that really rapidly. But then in my early 30s, I hit a huge burnout, massive. I collapsed at home with multiple organ failure. I was rushed to hospital. I was told by my doctors to write my letters to my children.
Oh my
They
God.
literally said that they didn't think I was going to leave the hospital. And in that, a huge thing happened. I just decided this is not how my story ends. And I really feel like that was the beginning of my journey into this spiritual business that I have now, of it was like a spiritual reawakening. I went back to, I knew that, the earth side, it was bleak.
Yeah.
They had said, write your letters to your children, prepare your family for your passing. And that was very real at the time. But I knew I wasn't going to find the solutions in the real world. I knew I was going to find the solutions in the spirit world. And so I turned inward and I reconnected with all my spiritual gifts. And I began to receive divine guidance on how to heal myself. And that first guidance was really scary because it told me, sign yourself out of hospital. And they were like, we're breathing for you at the moment. We're doing this for you at the moment. You have not digested any food in literally days. Like, your organs are not working. You can't sign yourself out. And I was like, I need to sign myself out. And so I did, and I like staggered out of those doors. And when I staggered out of those double doors of the hospital, it was like walking through a portal, like an event horizon. And I knew at that point in time, like, life would just never be the same again as I stepped through that door. And I remember just taking that step and taking a big breath of fresh air, because I'd been in like hospital air for about 11 days at that point. So it was like really nice to get like some actual fresh air. And I came home, and my guidance, my intuition said, get your journal. And I had to lay beside the patio doors.
Yeah.
Now the wee patio doors cracked so I could get extra oxygen, because I couldn't send oxygen with me. So I was like really labored breathing and everything. And then I wrote in my diary, in my journal, and it was the first time I'd ever admitted it, that extreme self-abuse had got me there. And whereas I wasn't taking drugs, and I wasn't drinking and abusing things like that, my abuse had come from like overworking. And it was the first time I admitted it. And I wrote in the same journal, in the line below, I wrote extreme self-love, ? Because I thought, if extreme self-abuse had got me here, the only way to get better, the only way to heal my body was going to be extreme self-love. And it had to be extreme, because I'd already visited the other extreme. I needed to go to the other side. And that was a bit of a problem, because I didn't know anything about self-love at that point in time. I'd been all about the work. I'd been all about working hard and getting my nose to the grindstone. I was proud of my hustle, all of that. So it was pretty crazy. And so I just began really following intuition and inner guidance.
Yeah.
And what's happened is, and in 2015, I got the prompt to move my spiritual events company. That was the only business I kept. So I sold the two of them, and then one of the other ones I just disbanded. But I kept my spiritual events company, and I got just this nod to like, move your business online. More people in the world need what you have. And I was like, okay. So I thought, God, I don't know the first thing about running an online business, but let's go for it. And I moved online. And in 2015, my business, it was like starting brand new again. So I had zero business. I had zero money to start a business with online. So I used every free online tool out there, which is one of the things I love about online businesses, that you can genuinely start a business literally for free. Even today, you can still do that, which is amazing. And then I started just, kind of working on building my business. And in 2017, I retired my husband.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
And I brought my daughter home to work with us as well. So my eldest daughter, she came and began working with us too. Now my stepdaughter also works for us. So we're truly a family business. So it just grew from there. And then in 2021, we ran like this crazy experiment called the My $1 Million Experiment. And the experiment was literally, we asked the question, can mindset and intuition training, along with $1 million plan, make you a millionaire in just 1 year? And it went viral. Like, it went bananas crazy viral. And 4,300 people joined the experiment. And out of the 4,300, you had a 1 in 287 chance of becoming a millionaire, because 14 people became millionaires from the process. And we had so many wins.
That's incredible. What a statistic as well.
Well, if you think about it, next to the statistics of playing the lottery, like, the odds of winning the lottery is massive. Where 1 in 287.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And the thing is, that information and that knowledge, like, people don't get amnesia the next year. So even if they didn't do it the first year, they can apply that knowledge. So we know that number over the next few years is just going to keep growing. But it's absolutely amazing. And it was just a phenomenal thing to do. And that became also our $1 million a year. So I'd literally gone from, because after my multiple organ failure, we ended up on the good old British benefit system. I am not kicking that system. That kept us going for a while. But, so I went from 2015 living on welfare to 2021 having a $1 million business.
That's absolutely crazy. Congratulations. I find your story absolutely inspirational and fascinating because obviously you've mentioned there that you had multiple organ failure. I know that you was it something like £120,000 worth in debt? At one point you were even homeless?
Yeah, so in 2006 we were 120,000 in debt.
Wow.
And that's when I first came across the law of attraction. I actually began teaching the law of attraction in 2006 because it was really transforming my life. And I was really, really changing my life very rapidly. And so from 2006 to 2008 is when we became completely debt free. And other than a mortgage, myself and my husband are debt free now. So that's amazing, because I honestly at that point in time, and if anyone's listening to this that's really, really deep in debt, let me first start by saying you are not your debt. That's the first thing, right? We tend to put that debt on us. You are not your debt. It doesn't mean anything about you. It just means that you have debt. That's all. And it doesn't make you a good person or a bad person or anything like that. So, don't put that on you. And if I can get out of £120,000 in personal debt, unsecured, which meant they would come after me and my house if I messed up there. If I could get out of that debt, then anyone can get out of debt. And it is just having a plan in place and, honestly, do your research on the law of attraction because it is gold. And that's what I did. And, I just attracted so many solutions. It was insane. I randomly heard this bit of advice, and it was phone up your creditors and ask them if they'll take a lesser amount. So I thought, well, nothing ventured, nothing gained. So I was like, hey, I might be in a position to pay this debt off in full, but I can only afford this amount. Would you guys take it? And I would offer ridiculously low amounts. I remember I had a debt for 8,000 and I offered $2,000 and they said yes.
What? And they just cleared the debt completely?
So literally $6,000 got written off. They literally wrote $6,000 off.
Wow. Oh my God. I didn't know that they could do stuff
because to them it was much better than it was. Yeah, it was people don't know that they can do stuff like that. And it's like that because to them it was much better to get $2,000 in a lump sum than wait years to recover the 8,000.
Right. And I mean, I know you spoke there about in terms of the millionaire experiment as well. So you spoke there about having the power of mindset and, connecting with your own intuition. So how do we do that to attract and receive money then? How do we implement that in our day-to-day lives?
So I channel a collective consciousness and they teach, and they've taught me literally everything about energy. So it sounds a bit strange to say that you channel it. So this is my collective consciousness called Skylar that I channel. So Skylar teaches that we live on a planet with only one energy that we perceive as two energies.
Okay.
So the one energy that is everything is source. And then source has a counterpart, which is the absence of source. So we have source energy, which we call source. And then with the absence of source, we call that void. So the first thing when you're manifesting money and working with money is that if you have to be connected to source, because source is the source of everything. So source is the source of abundance. It's the source of everything. However, most people who are in need of money, the moment that you feel into yourself and you say, am I in need of money? If you are in need of money, need is a lack energy and that taps you into the void. So that's the first mistake that people do is that they try to manifest money while deeply, deeply tapped into void energy. The nature of the void. Now, what I want to teach you about natures is a dog is a dog. And even if by some miracle you manage to teach that dog to meow, it doesn't suddenly turn into a cat. It's always going to be a dog, right? So it's the same thing with the nature of the void. It's always going to be the void. So it doesn't matter if you're tapped into the energy of the void. It does not matter how positively you think on top of the void. You're always going to return back to the void. There's always going to be black there. So the first thing that we have to do is kind of like disconnect a human from the void and reconnect them to source. And the good news is it's an on-off system. So if the void is on, source is off. And if source is on, the void is off. And so how we do that is by tapping into source energy. And the best way that I have for that is gratitude. Tapping into gratitude, feeling deep sense of gratitude taps you deeply, deeply into source. Once you're tapped into source, now you're ready to start your manifesting game and up your manifesting game, because now you're in the right energetics to apply mindset. So if you start to apply positive mindset while the energetics are right, now the conduit is open for flow to start happening and for your money to start increasing. So the cool thing is that we as human beings, which is not so cool, we always look for the how. Well, I can't imagine how I could get more money. How could I get more money? How could I do this? You know, when you're howing, you're not allowing. So the key is making sure that you're tapping into allowing energy. So allowing energy means that you don't need to know how you're going to pay all your debts off. Instead, you're open and you're available for answers and solutions to come your way.
That's amazing. So is this something that we could do like as a collective, like right now, listening to this podcast episode? Or would you say it is, you know, just doing kind of what we're doing in terms of gratitude and the law of attraction practices, like focusing on that gratitude? Would you say that's the best thing to tap into that abundance and that source energy?
Absolutely. Gratitude is, if I want you to think about like your life as it is right now, and anyone listening to this, think about your life as it is right now. And if you really think about it, like if you think about all the things that you want and all the things that you desire, like where are they going to go? Right? It's going to go on top of the life that you currently have. So like we're stacking it on top of each other like this, right? And that might sound a little bit odd because you might be like, no, I'm planning on being rich in the future. But like when the future happens, where will it be? It'll be right now. It won't be in the future. It will be now. So it's always going to end up on top of this moment. Like this moment is the only moment we have. Like every moment that passes, it's past now. It's only now. So what we have to understand is that energy is built on top of energy. So if the energy right now is just laden with lack, we're just so obsessed with how little we have, how hard it is, how difficult it is, because like energy attracts like energy. The only energy that we are really an energetic match for is how hard it is, how difficult it is. So your next now moment becomes hard and difficult. This is why I love the gratitude practice, because a lot of people dismiss gratitude. They're like, oh, well, it's just, you know, it's so simple. Like, what could it really do for me? But here's the thing. It like taps you deeply into lack. But not only that, I mean, this gratitude is like insanely amazing. It changes your biochemistry of your brain, right? So your brain's biochemistry begins to change. Not only that, have you ever heard of like when people are like really mean spirited and things like that, and then we say the saying, "Oh, they are really hard hearted."
Yeah.
Well, and we tend to think of negative people as quite hard hearted. Well, there's actually truth in that, because with some of the stressor chemicals, like when you are a very negative person, your body is producing more kind of stressor hormones. Those actually harden the arteries. When we give gratitude, we produce a hormone called oxytocin, which has a little hook on the molecule and it scrapes the insides of your arteries, softening your arteries. And I love that because it's literally good for your health. A Harvard study on gratitude, and they studied nuns. Nuns are amazing for studying because they are a group of people who, or monks even, are really good for studying because they're a group of people who eat the same food and live in the similar conditions. And yet we can get different results in that population. So they studied these nuns over the course of 20 years and discovered that nuns who basically declared themselves as grateful people were living on average 7 years longer than the nuns who didn't think that they were a very grateful person.
Oh, wow.
So, like, it even extends your life. So it's amazing. Like, I cannot exalt gratitude enough. But if you want to change your energetics, that's like your point of attraction. Gratitude is the best thing. It is super simple. You don't need any special tools. You can start right this very second of just thinking, what am I grateful for? The more that you do this, the more you begin to change the chemistry in your brain, the more you'll start to filter in more things in your consciousness to be grateful for. The more open you become to opportunities, the more you're able to spot and see opportunities. So things start to really snowball from there. So that's why I always say, if you're going to start with anything, you don't have to get fancy. Just start with gratitude.
Yeah, I do gratitude practices most mornings and last thing at night, just because I love to start my day with gratitude because I just think it sets me up right for the day. It's almost like I'm putting on my coat of armor so that, like what you say, when you start the
Mm.
day with gratitude, you're almost armoring yourself for the rest of the day ahead. And if anything negative does happen, it's water off a duck's back. Whereas, like, when I do it at nighttime as well, I'm giving thanks for what happened through the day, but I'm also preempting what happens tomorrow. And it really changes your mood. It really, really helps me even get a better night's sleep on an evening. It really does change you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I always recommend it for anyone who has trouble sleeping. So the gratitude practice that I recommend is that you write your gratitudes at night time. And I mean, by all means, you can start writing them in the morning too, but write them at night time, last thing before you go to bed. So your last thoughts of the day are positive. And then you go
Mm,
to bed and you wake up in the morning. And then what I suggest that you do is as you put one foot down, you say thank, and then the other foot down, you. And that's how you start your day, with a thank you. And then you read your gratitudes from the night before and you feel the feelings of gratitude. And so, you can by all means journal another lot if you want, but you can read through the ones before. And then that way your day is literally sandwiched between gratitude, and it's really, really effective. But also as well, learning to train your intuition as well, because intuition exists in the alpha brainwave state. So it's actually
mm,
documented that it's actually a different state of brainwave. Now, what's really cool about the alpha brainwave state is children, and that's why children are so psychic. Children are naturally alpha brainwave thinkers. It isn't until they start to get into like around about 9, 10 that the alpha waves start to give way to beta waves, which is what most of society operates on. About 10% of the population are natural alpha brainwave thinkers. But the alpha brainwave state is really, really exciting state because there is like a veil between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind, the best way to describe that is like a video recorder that's literally recording everything.
yeah.
So with alpha thinkers, the veil between those two are thinner. So you have access to more of your thoughts, more of your brain, which is great. But then the other thing that they've discovered is that alpha brain waves are a little bit like an antenna to the universe, so that you actually start picking up things that are in the ether that are literally like radio waves, right? Like you start
Mm,
picking up stuff. And that's how, when people who are natural alpha thinkers, that's why they excel in different things. So when sports personalities, for instance, and you'll hear the commentator going, oh my God, he's really in the zone. That zone that they're talking about is the alpha brainwave state. And so when people are artists are classic for getting into that zone. They'll get into that place, and they're really, what they're really in is a place where they're very, very open to just channeling divine energy. And that divine energy can help you with whatever it is that you want to create in your life. If you want a better life, if you want more happiness, more joy, more fulfillment, more abundance, like, it can help you with any of those things and direct you into the direction of those things.
I love hearing about all of this as well, because it's things that I do on a day-to-day basis, but it's learning the science behind them. And I think when you learn the science behind them, you understand why they help you and why they do that. And it helps put things into perspective. And then you think, well, if there's science behind it, then it's backed up, and your conscious thought isn't just going, nope, it's not going to work. So it's immediately backing it up with a bit of science, isn't it? So thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that.
I have a very like left and right brain. So if my left brain is not, that's your logical brain. If that's not satisfied for me, I don't do well with information. So I've always, like, on everything that I teach, I've always like backed it, like tried to find the science behind it too, so that I can have that complete teaching. And I mean, that love of science for me started at a very young age, because I had an awareness of spirit, and I had two choices. Either I was like completely cray cray, or the spirit world was real and there would be science
Yeah.
to back it up. And what I did find was lots of science to back it up. So it's so now I'm all good there. But for a long time, you know, I was like, well, I have two choices here. Either I'm like literally hearing voices and people say that's not good, or there's a reason why I do hear voices, and there's a scientific reason behind it. And, you know, and when you work with spirit, you know, it can be like hearing voices, and people do give you funny looks when, you know, you think like, oh, it's the voices in
Yeah.
my head, you know, but they've helped a lot of people, those voices.
Can you tell me a bit about your 100 program, Joanna? Because I seen it on your website. You've got an application form, haven't you, where spiritual women are all working collectively to raise the vibration of the planet, and in turn kind of heal all the problems that we're all facing daily. So tell me a bit more about that, because I'm really intrigued by that.
Oh, amazing. So I'm a spiritual life and business coach. So I help my main people that I help women and some very discerning men that, but I help people to really build big spiritual businesses. So one of the reasons why I specialize in helping spiritual people get their message out there is that I really feel that my mission is to raise the vibration of the planet. And I've always felt it's not a one woman job. It's an everyone on their A game job. So for me, what that means is empowering someone else to, like, with all the tools that I've used to grow my businesses. I've been in business for over 23 years. I run multiple successful businesses, and I started coaching people in business about at the age of 24. So I'm just about to turn 48. So I've been coaching people in business for a long time.
You don't look 48.
Oh, thank you. So but yeah, so I've been coaching people in business for a long time now. And so it's just sharing all my expertise. So when I first started building this business that I'm in, all of my courses, all of my programs are channeled, and they come from a non-physical spiritual document called the Codex of Light. And the Codex of Light is about how human beings can expand their consciousness. So the tools that I have in my business, a lot of the people that I support, they started saying to me, Joanna, I love the tools that you've introduced me to. I love, you know, what you taught, but I work with clients. I would love to use these tools with my clients. And so the 100 is where you literally get everything in my world. So you get the 4 courses of unity consciousness. So unity consciousness is self, soul, service, and source. And you get the 4 programs that represent that framework. You then get 3 certification programs that teaches you the tools that are in many of my programs to be able to take them and use them with your clients, so that you can teach them and teach them further, and you teach them on. And the whole idea is to really support somebody in a year-long container that is a whole year that really, really supports them to beginning to really lift their vibration and help them to step into that next level version of them. And as they do that, they're going to increase their business. They're going to increase their fulfillment in life. They're going to increase their happiness. So the ripple effect of this is huge. Like I'll take, for example, one of my 100 ladies. She's been in my world for a while now, and she is in all of my programs now because she's in the 100. And she joined our world disabled, and really in her own words said that that she had felt kind of written off by society. She is now a podcast in the top 0.5% of the world. It's maintained that for a whole year. She has become an Amazon best-selling author. I think it's 5 times over, and she's about to do it for a 6th time. And it's absolutely extraordinary what the changes in her life that she's created. And this is the power of these teachings, of really seeing these teachings. And in fact, she actually wrote on my Facebook page the other day that her best investment that she's ever made is the 100 with me, which was really touching to hear that. But this is what I'm talking about, because she now does multi-author books as part of her business. So in her world, over 55 women have become best-selling authors as well.
Oh, wow.
Which is incredible. So, it's like, that's her ripple effect, right? So I helped her, and then she went on and created transformations for all these other people. And then I know those other people are going to go out and create transformations. And so I really feel like this is how we're going to end up literally impacting and changing the world. The 100 is about really stepping in and taking ownership that I'm here to be a change maker.
I was going to say, and it will have that ripple effect as well, because success does ripple outwards. And people always say, don't they, that you are a product of the 5 people that you are around the most. And I've noticed it myself when I've started hanging around with other business owners and other entrepreneurs. My business has flourished. And I think what we were even saying about the start about Denise Duffield Thomas's Money Bootcamp community, because you're around like-minded souls, you're lifted to a higher state of consciousness. And I do think, obviously, I know my listeners will be fascinated by all of this, by the way, because the majority of messages that I get on a day-to-day basis are, how do I manifest money? How do I make money in my business? So obviously we're going through a bit of a dip and a recession here in the UK for some people. So what would be your kind of top 3 spiritual tools to kind of thrive through that cost of living crisis?
Definitely gratitude. It's got to be top of the shop, right? So be grateful for what you already have so that you become an energetic match for more. That's number 1. Number 2 is you can turn off your televisions, right? You can turn off your televisions. Go listen to Canny Crystal's podcast. Listen, there's lots of amazing podcasts, YouTube videos, all the things out there, right? Yeah. Fill your head with good stuff instead of the rubbish that is on our televisions. Do not tap into the news. Do not listen to the news. All it is doom and gloom. And what happens is that we listen to that, and then we start to become convinced that that is the reality. And before we know it, we're having our own cost of living crisis. I guarantee you that when the cost of living crisis hit our airwaves and all the news channels and everything like that, very few people were actually experiencing that. The more that we bought that story, the more we convinced ourselves that this was going down. And we started to experience the pinch, the difficulty, the hardship, because if you focus on the struggle, you will get more struggle. That is literally law of attraction 101. And this is why I believe, in my own humble opinion, that news and things like that, it's actually very toxic for human beings. It's not good. If the news was more proper news, as in it was impartial and that it wasn't biased towards negativity, if it had positive news stories balanced with the negative stories that are happening in the world, I think it would be a lot healthier. I think it's very unhealthy to keep tapping into things like the news that is just literally a biased way of looking at life. It's everything is doom and gloom. Everything is terrible. You would imagine that your neighbors are going to murder you anytime if you listen to all of that. So I unplugged. I unplugged from all of that. I have never been happier unplugging from all of that. So
Yeah.
that's my second tip. My third tip is we live in a world where there has literally never been so much freaking opportunity. I always believe that every generation has a gold rush. So the gold rush was the reference to the gold rush is something that happened in America. All of these people emigrated to pan for gold, and a lot of them became very, very wealthy as a result. The Silicon Valley.com boom was another gold rush that lots of people rushed to Silicon Valley, made a ton of money, and have done very well. I believe the gold rush for our generation is the internet. There is so much opportunity on the internet. And as I say to my clients and my students, if you can work Facebook, you can work an online business, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people will say, well, I don't have the technical skills to do this. There is no reason why anyone really needs to be hurting for money if you have an internet connection in this era. There is so much opportunity there. And guess what? If you're switching off that television, you'll have a lot more time to watch things like YouTube videos. That's how I got started in my online business. I knew really not a lot about building an online business, and I began watching YouTube videos. I began educating myself. And when I finally had that money, I pushed the buy it now button on Denise Duffield Thomas's boot camp. And I was so scared doing it. But now looking back, I would go back to my 2015 version and cheerlead her and be like, do it, do it.
Yeah.
I would have got her to sign up sooner, because I think when you start to invest in yourself and you start to put your money where your mouth is and you start to invest in your education, the gap between where you want to go in life and where you currently are, the distance between the 2 points is just education. That's it. And it doesn't have to be that horrible, boring school. If you didn't enjoy school, like I hated school, but the education that I've had online has been joyful, exciting, amazing, and it has made me a crap ton of money. And I've helped so many people in the thing. So that would be my top 3 tips. Absolutely. And don't buy what the media is selling.
I was going to say, because step 2, what you were saying there, your second tip was about turning off the news, and I relate to that so much. So I was just talking about this in a podcast episode maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago about how I've stopped watching the news, I've stopped reading the newspaper, I've stopped scrolling Facebook for all of those crappy little news articles, and like looking at even on the internet, as soon as you load up Google, it'll have like little news articles. I've stopped taking like interest in them because it does affect your energy. Now, something that I mentioned on the podcast a couple of weeks ago is that
Massively.
when my mum goes to the bingo on a Tuesday evening, she will record the news and the soaps. And it's like, why would you record the news? And she said, oh, it's because I love to watch it. But she is the most negative person I have ever met in my life, because everything that happens on them soaps, she thinks that that's going to happen in real life. She thinks that every Christmas there's going to be a murder. Do you know what I mean? And it's like she's taken that as verbatim because she lives in this tiny little village and she sees that as, this is real life, and it's not.
Yeah.
And I remember back in December, I took her to London to see ABBA. And we got to King's Cross station. As soon as we set foot off that train, there was people, with Harrods bags and like shopping bags, and people that had literally like been out doing the Christmas shopping, because we're talking 5 days before Christmas here. And she was looking around and she was absolutely amazed. And I said, what's wrong? And she said, well, I thought we were going through a cost of living crisis. And I went, the only people that are going through a cost of living crisis are the people that have been watching the news, because it's not really affecting anyone else.
It is
Yeah,
brainwashing.
it
And
is brainwashing.
along with that, I mean, if I was to give you a list of things that you could unplug from, and anyone listening to this, the news is number 1. The soap operas, sorry, I know you might like the stories, but Please, for the love of God, get rid of them, because they just sell this very depressed view of society,
Yeah.
or over dramatized view of society, and it's not real.
It's not
And
real.
it affects you mentally. It's really affecting you mentally. Then the other thing as well is I really am not a big fan of the supermarket magazines,
Yeah.
where either the people on the front cover are too fat or too thin, to this or to that.
Yeah.
Like these poor women that are covered in these magazines never get it right. Oh, she's a fashion disaster. Oh, she is too flashy in that, whatever it is. That is just filling your brain with, like, when you see gorgeous women and they're like apparently to this or that, then you look at yourself and it ruins your relationship with yourself, because you think, well, if that woman who looks amazing is getting like slaughtered in the press, then like, what chance do I have as a mere mortal, So I think that really sends a very negative message to your mind as well. So get rid of those kind of things as well. And then I think, really start consuming, and I use the word consuming for media, because we think about consuming of what we eat.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you eat nothing but rubbish, you're going to be unhealthy. Well, if you consume nothing but rubbish media, your brain is going to be very unhealthy too. So it's about learning to consume better content, like things that uplift you, things that make you feel good, things that make you feel hopeful. That gratitude journaling is a type of consumption. You are consuming better thoughts,
Yeah.
and you become literally what you consume, right? So people, you start to make those micro shifts, and you don't have to make like lots of big shifts. Like, start with cutting out the news, see how it goes. Then start by maybe getting rid of, if you're buying those mags every week, then get rid of them, and like do it a week at a time, do it in increments. Don't try and do it all at once, because when we make changes that are too big and too bold, they rarely stick. We make changes in little increments, they will have lasting power and sticking power, and they will last a lot longer. But yeah, those are definitely like my tips for unplugging from the brainwashing. It is
Oh,
brainwashing. It's
100% it's
literally
brainwashing.
making you think.
Yeah.
I remember my mum was addicted to the news as well, and she was very negative at that time. But we got her down to the diehard thing that my mum won't give up is the Sunday newspaper. But it was a daily newspaper down to one newspaper a month, a week now.
That's a good improvement.
So she's done really, really well, but it has made a huge difference to her mentally, massive difference.
Amazing. So, Joanna, just before we move on to your last question, I just wanted to ask, because you mentioned at the start that you use crystals. I just wondered, what is your favorite crystal? What crystal do you work with on a day-to-day basis?
I have 5, so am I allowed to say 5?
Of course, go for it.
I can't pick a favorite because I've got my 5. So I call them Joanna's favorite 5.
Love
And
that.
they are really, really basic crystals. So because I've worked with crystals for so many years, everybody thinks that I'm going to be like, oh, you're going to tell us something like super exotic, super fancy. No. My favorite crystals, my number 1 on that list, I think, is definitely quartz crystal. Why do I love quartz? I love quartz so much because it is an amplifier of energy. So if you're giving gratitude, hold a quartz crystal in your hand. It will amplify the signal of the gratitude that you're giving in that moment. So quartz is amazing. Its sort of technical name is feldspar, and it's literally one of the most common prolific substances on our planet. But it does amplify energy, which is amazing. Early radio sets had quartz in it. Your quartz
Mhm.
movement on your watch, the reason why your watch might say quartz on it is because there's an actual quartz crystal in there powering your watch, which is really cool. So I love that. The next one that I really love, again, a very common crystal, I love amethyst. So amethyst is amazing for aiding your dreams. So I love that one. It's really, really good. It's really good for manifesting dreams as well, which is really great. But it's really good for aiding sleep, manifesting dreams and expansion. And it's really great for opening up the third eye as well. So I love a little bit of amethyst. It's so nice. And then I love amethyst's cousin, which is citrine. So citrine is when amethyst has gone under a high pressure in the earth. So if you get natural citrine, you get unnatural citrine, which is where they've heat treated the amethyst and it turns an orange color. It's very orangey. Natural citrine tends to be this beautiful golden yellow. And citrine is an amazing energy for boosting your. Oh, you've got a lovely piece there.
Yeah, I love natural citrine. It's just so golden, isn't it?
Lovely, isn't it? It's so good. Boosting your creativity. It's fantastic for manifesting wealth. And so it's a really, really good one there as well. Then I love working with angel energies, and actually a lot of people like selenite for angel work, but I love
Me
blue
too.
lace agate. Blue lace agate for angel work is like, it is like having a piece of blue lace agate in your hand is like connection to the angels instantly. You get that beautiful calm feeling. It is a deeply, deeply healing stone, which I really, really love about that stone as well. And then my final crystal, again, another super common rose quartz, self love. It just connects you into self love. It connects you into the self. It's very soothing. It's very healing. But the girlies that are romancing, be careful with rose quartz because it can also up your fertility. So if you're all about being a little bit more fertile, that's amazing. But but like if you can't be good, be careful if you're using rose quartz. And so rose quartz is brilliant, but it's really soothing, really self-love. So those are my 5 top crystals that I love. And I'm sure that you probably have them all in your shop, but I adore those.
I do. I've got them all over my desk even. Like, there's my quartz, I've got my citrine, I've got my blue lace agate there.
And I have to say, I'm also very partial to this is, if I can catch the flash in it, but this has got, there we go, it's got
This
beauty.
Labrador,
Oh, I
right?
love that too. But yeah, I haven't met many crystals I don't like.
I know I'm an addict. I've got over 200 of my own in the house. I've got them everywhere. So Joanna, what's next for you then? Where do you see yourself in, say, 5 years' time?
Honestly, my life has changed so much in just in the last 5 years. So I actually have no idea where I'm going to be in the next 5 years. I know it's probably going to be somewhere absolutely spectacular and amazing. At the moment, we're working on quite a few
Yeah.
different projects and things like that. So I just launched a card deck this year. We're going to launch another card deck for my light web program. So we're creating a light web deck, which is a soul-based technology that I teach. That's amazing. So we're launching Oracle card deck for that. And I'm busy writing a book at the moment called Living with Skylar, which is 365 lessons with my spirit team, Skylar. So it'll be a lesson for every single day. And then you get my insights of how I worked with that lesson or how my clients applied that lesson to their lives. So you get the insight with it as well. So I'm having a lot of fun writing that at the moment. And that will be our sort of next projects. But I prefer to kind of like really, really live in the moment. So at the moment I'm having the best time
Yeah.
ever, but in 5 years, oh my goodness, like I literally get butterflies at the thought of that. And I want to say to anyone that's listening to this, I know that I'm speaking today from a place of pure privilege. And if you are going through difficulty at this point in time, I want you to let you know that from where I've come from, I've been in that place. And everything that we've discussed today is all of the things that I did to be able to be in the place of pure privilege today. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that I used to think about the future and dread it. I used to think, oh God, I would have absolute
Mm.
panic at the thought of the future. Now I'm filled with butterflies. And I think it's all down to learning how to move back into sync with my own intuition and learning how to use mindset to create the life that I want. And that's what I help other people with now. And they go out and they help other people with that too. So we're literally leading a little revolution over here in mindset and intuition.
I love that. That's very inspirational, Joanna. Thank you for sharing all of that. So where can my listeners, where can they find you online? Because you've got your website. I know you've got your own podcast as well, haven't you? I've actually just finished listening to the episode about crop circles. I'm obsessed with anything UFO, UAPs and all that jazz. I absolutely love that episode. So where can people find you online?
I am super simple to find online. So I'm joannahunter.com on my website. And then I am Joanna Hunter, COM, like the com, all one word, on every social media platform. So if I'm on that platform, I will have that name. So it's super, I made it really easy for people to find me. If you want to learn about money and stuff, TikTok is the place that I talk about money. If you love things like channelings and healing, I do that on Instagram. And then my Facebook is like a big old melting pot with all the goodness on there. So yeah, you can just come along and follow us and say hi. And if you've listened to this podcast, come and say that you come and listen to this podcast and tag either myself or Marty here. That would be amazing.
I love that. Thank you so much. And obviously I'll put all of the information that you just relayed there, as well as some other links in the show notes below. But Joanna, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really do appreciate your honesty, your inspirational story and everything. And I know that my listeners will really, really connect with that. So thank you so much for sharing and being so honest.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I've had a blast. This has been great. Let me ask you one question before we close. What's your favorite crystal?
Oh, honestly, it changes all the time. So I'm constantly working with Moldavite. So I wear a piece of Moldavite. I've got a piece of Moldavite over here. But I like you, I just love the flash of Labradorite. I know you can't see it, but this has got like a huge purple flash.
It's amazing.
Oh, I just love Labradorite. It changes so frequently though. I do say like more money crystals. So citrine, pyrite, Moldavite, anything high vibrational, anything high energy, because I am quite a high energetic person. And I think it just kind of keeps me sane. I know some people hold Moldavite in their hands and they think, oh my God, this is too much energy. But for me, it's perfect.
Oh, yeah. I love it. I love it. I saw a big whole thing on TikTok on Moldavite, and there was loads of girlies and guys posting that their lives like implode and then everything works out okay. Yeah. But it's like a big change in crystal. Yeah. And that's exactly how I experienced Moldavite the first time that I really experienced Moldavite as well. I had a week of like being really emotional with it.
Yeah. I mean, that similar kind of thing happened with me as well. Like, I started using it and for about 3 months, nothing at all happened. And then all of a sudden, everything kind of just seemed to snowball. I had my first £30,000 month. And then after that, it just went bam, bam, bam. And it was one thing after another. And I was like, is this the Moldavite? And I mean, this year alone, I've worked with Vogue, Stella McCartney, and Chanel. And I just think like working with those 3 massive fashion houses, that's got to come from the Moldavite. I know it's hard work and determination as well, but I often give my thanks to the Moldavite for that because I know it's helped me level up.
Yeah, it can. But there's also as well, like I always feel like before it levels you up, like it takes all the stuff that would have held you back, like the mindset, sometimes even friends, like things like that. It kind of like goes, yep, you don't need that there. And yep, you don't need that there. And it starts picking it out of your life. And at that time, it can be a bit scary. And then, of course, the big opportunities start flowing in. So, yeah, I would definitely say that Moldavite has worked her magic there.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And like I say, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And for anyone else listening, like I say, I will put all of Joanna's links in the show notes below. And I will see you all next Friday for another episode. Thanks very much, guys. Bye.